Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in. A big thank you for joining in for the today's masterclass, which is on how to ace public policy and impact consulting interviews. Cool. So let's start with this very pertinent and important question, which is what are interviewers looking for? If I have to sort of categorize in terms of buckets around some of the things which interviewers are looking for, I would like to do them this way. First is basic sectoral knowledge, right? If you are trying to get into a public policy role, they expect you to have certain basic, academic foundations or sectoral knowledge, right? Without which you won't be able to work, right? It doesn't matter whatever academic qualifications you hold. You might be an engineer, you might be an economist, you might be from political science, any other social science field or management field, but you need to have basic sectoral knowledge to be able to work in the public policy field. Second is technical skills, right? Obvious reasons. Technical skills would be knowledge, expertise, maybe skills to start from day one, like one of my friends on the call said, so something like that. But you need to have good and right technical skills for the roles within the public policy space which you are applying for. Right? Then, as some of you already said, critical thinking or problem-solving skills, which is about ability to obtain, interpret, use knowledge, facts, data, demonstrate originality, inventiveness, as people usually say, think of out of the box and stuff like that, right? Be comfortable in setups which are not uniform or standard, right? Be comfortable in chaos, find your way in chaos, something like that, right? Second is, as you people already said, teamwork or collaboration. Build relationships, work within a team structures, negotiate, manage conflict, and stuff like that. Then professionalism or work ethic, demonstrate personal accountability and effective work habits. It should people are not looking for uh, individuals who shirk responsibility, who say that look, all the good work done is mine, but whatever not so good happened is not mine. It is the responsibility or the the accountability lies with someone else. No, these are not the things which are appreciated in any corporate setup. You have to be professional and you have to have a certain basic work ethic. And lastly, passion and motivation. Like one of you said, fit, right? So that fit is about, are you passionate enough or motivated enough for that particular role which you're applying for, right? So that is what interviewers are interested in, and they test you on for that. Now, okay, broadly, what was said would covered under one of these, 6 headers. Now, my question is, if I want to prioritize or rank them from a public policy perspective, how would that be? Like, what would take rank one? Like the most important? To be honest, all these points are important, but there are certain things which we call as critical when we interview. Okay, for example, when I interview someone, maybe the person is brilliant, right? Brilliant in the sense that the person has, when it comes to the technical skills, the person just beats other candidates. But when I talk to the person, I feel that the person might not be a very good team player. Okay, the person might not be someone who would be at the forefront, take responsibility for things or tasks done by the person, or be always open to praising their hand and saying that, look, I'm open to take up this challenge or this work and stuff like that. So the way an interviewer's thinking works is, I'm willing to accept the fact that you have basic sectoral knowledge. When it comes to technical skills, you might not be as good as other people, but you have got workable technical skills. Okay, but if after talking to you or after multiple rounds of interview, we realize that you are a good team player, you would fit well in the team, you have got good work ethics or professional ethics, you are a professional, that would any day trump someone else who is like the very top when it comes to technical skills or sectoral knowledge, but the interviewer is not confident about other aspects, right? And that is always the case. Why? I can train people, right? I can put people in a training program and I can train them well on certain things I want them to be doing as part of their role or the particular role which they're interviewing for. But it's really difficult and it's a time taking and painful exercise or a painful job to make people behave in a certain way or to make people behave in a way which is in line with teamwork, collaboration, ethics, etc. Changing behaviors take time. Okay, skilling people if they have the right attitude is okay. People are willing to invest that much of time and energy in people. So that is why when we interview people, we always say individual skills or individual brilliance is overrated. We are only looking for basic fundamental skills and sectoral knowledge for people to be able to do their job. Other than that, what always goes in your favor is your reflection in the way you talk and in the entire interviewing experience around all of these things, which is about teamwork, collaboration, which to my understanding is like at the very top, including professionalism and work ethic, your fit and motivation and rest of the other things, right? Because I can train people, but I cannot change their behaviors over a period of 5 months or 6 months or whatever, right? So usually people look for not candidates with individual brilliance or traits with individual brilliance, and that's especially true in public policy, because public policy is made of two words: public and policy. So, and both carry equal importance, and I will talk about more about these aspects, in my subsequent slides. But all said and done, in a corporate setup, especially within the public policy and impact field, individual brilliance is overrated, and that's the mindset that people, come with, or all employers come with. They are looking for basic, fundamental technical skills, sectoral knowledge, etc. Other than that, they're looking for people who are open to collaboration. They are team players. Other people find it easy to work with them. They have those critical problem-solving skills. They are always willing to raise their hand, take responsibility, and they are obviously, motivated and passionate about the task which they are doing, right? So all in all, if you're able to ace this matrix, in any interview, you would get through. And I will talk about how in my subsequent slides. Cool. So typically, for any interview preparation, we classify it as a three-stage process: before, during, after. Before carries around 90%, effort and weight. Rest, 5% during the interview, and rest 5% after the interview. Hence, 90% of my session will be focused upon this: what you need to do before the interview, how do you prepare for interviews and stuff like that. And 5% of the time I will spend on during and after the interview, what you should be doing during the interviews, and what you should be doing after the interviews, and what most importantly you should not be doing also. Okay? Cool. So we start with before, three stages of interview, how you should be preparing for the interview before actually the interview happens. Stage one, before the interview, it there are two stages. One is prepare, and another is practice. Very obvious ones. So how to prepare for interviews in the public policy or impact consulting space, or for that matter, in general, any interviews. Okay, so this is what I tell people who reach out to me for help on interview guidance as part of our market readiness program. So those on the call who are already part of the market readiness program would know I usually start by saying that the type of questions you have to prepare for any interview can be bucketed in 4 categories. Traditional questions. Don't worry, I'll talk about what traditional questions are. CV or resume based questions, job description based questions, and lastly, case or situation based questions. Any interview anywhere can be classified under these 4 categories. Now, obviously, depending upon the field, the particular role, how much weight each category takes would vary, right? For example, how much weight each category takes would vary if I compare a public policy interview versus an interview in the analytics or data science or software field, right? Similarly, within public policy also, how much weight would each category carry would depend upon the type of role you are applying for within the public policy field. For just example purposes, if you're applying for a impact consulting or in general consulting role in a social setup, maybe case or situation-based questions would carry around 50 to 60% of the weight, right? Similarly, if you're applying for an analyst role within public policy, maybe resume and JD-based questions would carry around 50 to 60% of the weight, right? Or if you are applying for, any other role, maybe, some of the traditional questions would carry more weight. For example, in the space of, public policy communications or advocacy, right? There may be a combination of traditional questions and situation-based questions would carry a 50 to 60% weight, right? So by the end of this, webinar, you would know what these buckets are, what sort of questions are asked in these buckets, and how to prepare for them, right? Now, obviously, depending upon your career choices and what sort of role you want to get into, you have to identify what bucket carries more weight and accordingly prepare for your interviews, right? So let's start with traditional interview questions. What are these traditional interview questions, essentially? Very simple. For the lack of a better word, I'm calling them traditional interview questions. But then essentially, traditional interview questions are things like introduction, introduce yourself, right? In every single interview you go, the starting would be introduce yourself, right? So we know that. Then fit test, right? Your motivations, your how passionate are you about the role? Why do you think you are fit for this role and stuff like that? Those are like fit questions will be asked in every single interview in some shape or form, right? Everyone is interested in that fit question, without which you won't be hired, right? Then there are certain traditional questions again, strengths, weakness, career aspirations, achievements, setbacks. Now, obviously, all of it, the universe won't be asked in all the interviews, but some bits and pieces of this universe will be covered in some shape and form in whatever interview you appear within the public policy or impact consulting space. Okay. Now, what is expected when it comes to interview preparation from your side is you ought to be prepared well for all of these type of questions. You should know if a question is related to any of these areas, what responses you should be providing. I call them stories, okay? Because every individual, whoever is interviewing you, likes to hear stories, likes to hear answers in a very coherent and logical manner, okay? So that is why I always ask people as part of our market readiness program is to come up with a story. The story should start with an introduction and should cover all of these aspects. So there should be a big story, and within that big story, there should be small stories hitting across multiple aspects of traditional interview questions. That is why I've written over here, story should be coherent with each other and in line with the JD. Story should speak to the career readiness competencies shared before. Story should bring out specific skills or traits of the person which are relevant for the job description. Very important point. Whatever you speak, howsoever you speak, whatever story you bring out, for the interviewer, it should feel like you are a fit for the role. You are the person he or she was looking for. The stories should be aligned with the job description or the role for which you are interviewing. The stories should not be disconnected. If you are talking about strengths, and I will showcase, what we consider as strengths within public policy in my subsequent slides. But for now, just know that whatever strengths you mention, those should be aligned with the JD. Whatever weaknesses you mention, those also should be aligned with the JD. Same goes for other things. So even if you are a Nobel laureate in a particular field, but that field is not relevant for the JD, I don't think it will, give you any brownie points in the interview. As simple as that. I'm not looking for Nobel laureates if I'm interviewing someone. I'm looking for a person who can do justice to the JD or who can give me confidence in those 40 to 60 minutes that the person is right for that particular role. As simple as that. So when you prepare for traditional interview questions, and I will speak more about what these traditional interview questions are, how, in what shape and form they can take. But do always remember, whatever you speak, it should be aligned with the JD. I, as an interviewer, every time you speak, should get confidence in your ability to justify the JD. As simple as that. Rest everything should be off the table, even if you are a Nobel laureate, even if you have hit maybe hundreds of centuries and etc. Doesn't matter. Okay. Cool. So like I was saying, invariably in all the interviews, the first question is introduce yourself or tell us something about yourself. Now here we have listed down certain do's or don'ts, right? What are the do's? Very important. Keep introduction under 90 seconds. I've seen people when I ask them to introduce themselves, they do not stop, right? They just keep going on for 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and then I have to interrupt them in between. That's never good. It is never good. Interviewers also have a time limit, right? If we have said that we're going to be conducting this interview for 45 minutes or 60 minutes, we need to stick to that. Interviewers also come up with a plan that, the 15 minutes they're going to be focusing upon this, another 15, 20 minutes they're going to be focusing upon this, another 15, 20 minutes they're going to be focusing upon this. Now, if at any point of time, because of the way you are speaking and, your methods, it makes them go away from their plan, it would go against you. If they are unable to test all the competencies for which they planned for testing in a particular interview, because interview went in a certain way, at the end of that time limit, they won't have confidence in your abilities for which they wanted to test you out, right? So you don't want to be in this situation. It's not a meritorious process which is going on here, right? We're looking for people who can justify the JD. We are not looking for, like I said, individually brilliant people. So always remember, it has to be short, crisp, under 90 seconds. And like I said in the previous slide, narrate a compelling, coherent story relevant to the JD. Emphasize experiences and skills relevant to the job. Give a personal touch by discussing hobbies or interests. Leave bait for the interviewer. Very important. When you introduce yourself, if you are smart, if you are astute, when you introduce yourself, you will pick up certain keywords in your introduction, very, very relevant with the JD, which interviewer will be compelled to pick up those words and ask you to maybe talk about those more or explain those more and stuff like that. And that is your moment to showcase your expertise, right? So it's a skill to leave bait for the interviewer when you introduce yourself. And more often than not, interviewer is going to bite that because I'm also looking for that reflection of expertise or skills from your side, right? I want you to leave bait. It's not like, you are doing something unethical over here. I want you to deliberately choose certain words which gets me interested in your profile. So it's a win-win situation for both. When I interview someone, if in an introduction, they mention certain words, certain keywords, or certain things which gets me, interested in their profile, it's a good thing. As an interviewer, I'm looking for that. It's not like I'm being baited into something which is bad. No, it is not like that. But if you are not prepared well, if you do not, put out an introduction in a way that you're leaving bait for the interviewer, then it leaves the field open for me to pick anything and everything which I want, either from your CV or from the JD. Some of the stuff you might be comfortable with, some of the stuff you might not be. Please remember, in any interview, I want you more often than not to be comfortable and talk about the stuff you know. Sometimes what will happen is the interviewer, themselves say that, look, okay, what are some of the topics you know well? Because they want you to talk about those and they want you to sort of assess how comfortable you are with those topics. Okay. So always remember, introduction is the key. It is asked in every interview. Under 90 seconds, coherent story, mention relevant things, and leave bait. Be astute about it. Okay. Next is what not to do. Discuss unrelated information. Family history. No. Only talk about things like I said in my previous slide, which is relevant to the job description. Or criticize past employers or experiences. No. Emphasize on your areas of weakness. No. Vague information about past experiences and achievements. No. So guys, think about it. We know that invariably there will be a question on introduce yourself at the very start. We know that, right? In every interview, this will happen. So you can prepare for it well, right? And that's the idea of putting the slide here. Another, very important traditional interview question, which is a fit test. Why this role, right? For example, things like, why do you want to join this company or role? Why do you think you are a fit for this role? Now, again, in some shape and form, the exact wording might differ. This question will be asked in almost all the interviews. So what do you have to do? Maybe in your answer, you have to focus on your career vision, skills, interests, experiences, if any. What the ask on the JD is very important. Like I said, every single sentence or word you utter should hit the job description. and also talk about why this company fits in your plan or your career vision. You can use a Venn diagram approach, which is like this, where, while answering fit questions, it can be a combination of your knowledge and skills, interests, aspirations, right? That's how you determine the fit. That, look, this is what you are skilled at, or this is what you know, or this is what your academic background is. These are your interests. This is what you want to do, and that is why you want to be, you have decided to go ahead, or you are appearing for interview for this role, right? So more often than not, I'll talk about these three things, and fit question would go well. What not to do? Very obvious ones. Don't talk about self-centric goals like salary, benefits, or prestige. No one will appreciate that. Yes, at the end of the day, we are all working for money, but I don't think fit is about money, right? So think about it. Do not talk about things which are not relevant for this role. Okay, even if you think that those are important for you, don't criticize your current or previous employers or role. Don't say that I'm very unhappy in my current role, that is why I want to go for this role. No, it doesn't work like that. Cool. Another question will come in various ways in your interview, which is, what are your career aspirations? Where do you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years? To do is be realistic and specific. Talk about achievable goals. Show alignment with the role. Connect your aspirations to the opportunities the company offers. Very important. Now, please don't say things like, my career aspiration is X and I'm here just to earn money, or I'm here just to support my family, or I'm here for various XYZ reasons which are not aligned with your career aspiration, or that I want to be in this role for 1 year or 2 years and then I will go for an MBA, or I want to be here for 1 year and then I will go for another degree or stuff like that. No, people don't want to hear that. Even if that is the correct career aspiration for you, you have to be smart enough not to talk about real aspirations, but only talk about aspirations which are aligned with the JD. Okay, it's not a truth game going over there. It's a game of identifying what you want out of that particular role, and is that company able to deliver on that? As simple as that. Okay, everyone has their own career aspirations. If they're aligned with the company, well and good. Even if they're not aligned, but you really need that job or role, you will get that only if the way you talk about your career aspirations are aligned with that role. Otherwise, you won't get it. Trust it. Trust you can trust me on that. That is why in Not to Do, we have written things like irrelevant personal goals. Don't be only focused on personal gain. Don't criticize the role or industry. Don't say that you want to earn money or something else, which you want to do later. Okay. Now, traditional interview questions can be around, achievements. Again, I won't focus a lot of my time on these slides. Questions can be, what is your greatest professional achievement? What have what achievements are you most proud about? The only thing to remember here as well is discuss relevant and specific achievements. Sorry. Most important thing is remember to quantify the success. And it might not always be obvious, but you have to think through this. The more you quantify, the more the interviewer will identify with it. Otherwise, it might be a success for you, but might not be for the interview, right? So when it comes to achievements, always try and quantify. Emphasize on team efforts. Like I said, people are looking for team players. They are not looking for individual brilliance. Give context to the situation and the impact of the action. Please remember, interview doesn't know you. So if you're talking about your achievements, giving proper context is important so the other person appreciates what you're talking about. More often than not, also it happens when I take mock interviews, people just assume that the context is known to the interviewer, which is never the case. So what will happen is, out of the 10-12 minutes which we spend discussing this particular aspect, 5 or 7 will go in terms of understanding the context, because unless I or the interviewer would understand the context, they would not understand the achievement. Okay, so there will be a lot of to and fro cross questioning before the context is understood, and this happens in a lot of mock interviews which I take as part of the mocks. So let's be aware of it, put out the context, and then talk about achievement by quantifying them as far as possible and ensure that those are relevant and specific. Not to do, don't oversell or exaggerate. Do not think that interviewers are fools. They would not know. They would know, before you even realize. Avoid arrogance, very important. And lastly, and this is what I've seen happening a lot of times in my mock interviews, people tend to go to school times. Look, some achievement from the school times or any other, story which you bring in from the school time does not carry as much weight as maybe a college times or your professional experience. Now, you might struggle to identify stories from your college times or your professional times. For that, A, you have to think. B, you can build stories. There is no one who's doing a truth check over there. If you have done X, you can very well say, I've done X plus Y plus Z, which is fine. If you are able to justify that and talk confidently about it. Okay. So it is like that. But because you want to bring out real stories, please do not go back to school times. More often than not, it won't be appreciated. Okay. Same points for strengths. Keep it structured. Align with the JD. Talk about genuine strengths. Be specific, give examples, and give context. Do not list too many. Don't ask for sympathy, very important. And, don't give generic answers. Weaknesses, same points, similar points. The most important thing about weakness is, again, you have to be smart and astute here. The idea is not to know your genuine weaknesses, okay? The idea is to know that you are aware, you are an aware person. But the way you have to put your weakness in interview is that it should sound like a strength. And if you are able to identify certain weaknesses, which are relevant to the JD, but sounds like a strength, that will give you brownie points. If you are actually say that, this is my weakness, I'm struggling to come over overcome this and stuff like that. Sorry, people are not there to give you sympathy, right? They're looking for people who are self-aware, and they're looking for people who say that, look, it is my weakness, but at some point of time, it might act as a strength to the team, right? So I won't go into specific weaknesses which might act like strengths. Maybe think about it, or you can connect with us later. I'm sure there are many, so it's a smart and astute way to talk about it. But when it comes to weaknesses, please do not start listing down your actual weaknesses. It won't help you clear interviews. And yes, don't blame others, please. Same story for setbacks. Okay, so there is a particular reason why I have kept this skill matrix over here, hard skills and soft skills. The reason is when you talk about traditional interview questions, when you talk about your strengths, weaknesses, achievements, etc., please know A, what you're good at, B, how those skills are aligned with the JD, C, what are some of the other skills which are asked in the JD. I will talk about identifying keywords in the JD later. But then, if you're aware of these aspects, you have to integrate these things in your answers so that it sounds like you are perfect or you will be able to justify the job description for which you are preparing for interview. So prepare your answers in a way that when it comes to strengths should be certain skills which are important for the role. When it comes to weaknesses should also be certain skills which are important to your role but sounds like a strength. When it comes to other stories, achievements, successes, etc., all stories in some shape and form should pick certain strengths or dip into certain strengths which are needed for the role. So you have to be smart about that. Okay. By the way, these slides are not, something which I'm putting for the first time. I have used them multiple times in my webinar. These slides are also there on LinkedIn. So I won't spend much time. If you want to know for each type of public policy role, what are the skills needed in terms of their importance, high, medium, and low, go to our LinkedIn page, and you would have this matrix over there. Now, lastly, just to round up this section on traditional interview questions, like I said before, public policy is as much about public as about policy. So in public policy or impact roles, in general, traditional interview questions carry a lot of weight. Right motivations always trump individual brilliance in terms of hard skills, as I've already said or started my session with this, right? So what usually happens is for mid or entry level roles, these questions are commonly used to assess communication skills, clarity of thought, alignment with the organization's mission. For slightly senior, or expert roles, the focus shift towards problem solving, strategic thinking, experience-based questions. Interviews like to gauge leadership style, decision-making abilities, stakeholder management experience, etc., etc. How to approach? Like I said in my previous slide, always link your response to public policy. Instead of generic strengths, highlight your data analysis skills, evidence-based policy making, etc., etc. In general, highlight strengths linked to the JD. When it comes to career objectives or career vision, etc., do not give a vague 5-year plan. Mention how you see yourself shaping policy in sectors like employment, education, climate. Again, the more aware you are about yourself and what you want to do, that is appreciated instead of vague answers and stuff like that. Okay. So this was about traditional interview questions. Like I said, in any public policy or impact roles, usually more often than not, traditional interview questions carry a lot of weight. I've talked about do's and don'ts, how to prepare for it, etc., etc. We'll touch base upon this a bit later, but more or less, if you are able to ace traditional interview questions, I would say around 20-25% of the interview you would be able to ace if you are able to prepare well for these traditional interview questions. Mac, again, I know you have raised your hand. Please note down your question. I will come to that, at the end of the session. Okay, so second section, going by that division of type of questions which are asked in the interview. First was traditional interview questions. Second was resume-based questions. Now, resume-based questions, objective is the same, to try and identify potential questions before the interview and prepare for them. Okay, prepare well for them. Now, step number 1 in resume-based questions is you have a CV, and please ensure that you have a good market-ready CV. And I'm sure because you have a good market-ready CV, then only it has been shortlisted. But still, if you are not sure about CV building and stuff like that, market readiness program is for that. You can explore that. Okay, so like I was saying, step number 1 for any, for preparing for resume-based questions is identify the keywords. All of you would have a CV which you have sort of, used for that role. Now, what you need to do is you have to identify keywords in that CV. Okay, for example, certain keywords have been highlighted or are in bold over here: strategy, entrepreneurship, strategy design, qualitative research, client relationship management, business development, social sector, right? So all the keywords in the CV, you have to note them down on a piece of paper and prepare them well, both from a technical point of view as well as from a sectoral point of view. You should know how these keywords are relevant to the JD and prepare accordingly. What usually happens is after you introduce yourself, etc., question, the interviewer would move to your CV, right? They would browse through your CV. Certain keywords which are especially relevant to the JD will strike them and they will question you on those, right? Now the questions can be following. The questions can be related to professional experience. Questions can be related to skills and abilities. questions can be related to education qualifications, positions of responsibility, project certifications, achievements, and recognition. These are typically sections on a CV, right? For example, when it comes to professional experience, interviewer can ask you to, walk through your experience at the previous company. What were your main responsibilities? Can you provide an example of the project? For example, if I interview people, I usually ask this question: just pick up one project and take me through end to end. What did you do? What outcome did you achieve? Then, based on what the person say, again going back to my bait point, I will pick up certain keywords from there and I will start grilling the person. And that's what happens in many interviews, right? You provide the bait, and those are picked up, and you are grilled on those. That is like one of the things which usually happens in the interviews. So you have to be prepared well. Let's say on your CV you have written certain things which you are not very confident about. Read about them. Okay. Ensure that you are prepared well. Do Google or ChatGPT. Figure out with respect to this keywords what are some of the most frequently asked interview questions. Let's say. Always go 2 steps deeper into concepts, because what happens is usually what interviewers appreciate is if you're talking about a certain concept, you are thorough with it. From a fundamental perspective, you know the concept. Because you have implemented it, so you are expected to know that end to end. So always focus upon the theory part of it as well as the implementation part. And just think about what all various questions can be asked from this particular concept or keywords and prepare them well. Same goes for skills and abilities. If you have written certain skills on your CV, prepared to be grilled on those skills. If you do not know them well, say that upfront that, look, this is the skill which I've written over here, but I'm just starting to learn it, which is also fine. But if you claim that you are an expert, but you are not able to answer questions, that is a problematic area. Okay. Sometimes we will ask that, okay, you have written that you are an expert in Power BI or Tableau. You tell me on a scale of 1 to 5, where would you rate yourself? Now, in overconfidence, if you rate yourself as 4 out of 5, and then obviously cross questioning will happen, and you are not able to answer most of those questions, then you won't be able to crack the interview, or you won't be taken forward, right? Because again, you are not self-aware. When I interview people, I'm fine with them saying that they are starting to learn these skills. But if they claim an 8 on 10 or a 4 on 5 and they are not able to answer certain fundamental questions, I won't take them, right? Because they are not self-aware. It is fine to write skills which you are currently learning, but not an expert on those. But please do not claim that you are an expert. Because if you claim you are an expert and you are unable to answer questions, more often than not, you would be rejected. From an educational qualifications perspective, usually not a lot of questions are asked. Sometimes people might, just look at your marks, etc., and say that why did you get so less marks and stuff like that. Maybe just prepare for a generic answer. People do not pay a lot of attention to your academic brilliance, to be honest. Even if you are an average, that's fine. But sometimes people can question you that why did you not get good marks? For example, you say that you got a 50% or a 48%, which is reflected on your CV. Then you might be asked those questions. If you have done certain projects, those will more often than not will be picked up in the public policy space. If projects are related to public policy, 99 out of 100 times people will ask questions if those are there on your CV. So prepare them well, both from a fundamental perspective and from a implementation perspective. If you are not able to ace those questions, you won't clear the interview. Achievements and accomplishments, this is fine. Not a lot of questions will be asked, but this section and what things you mentioned in this section, A should be mentioned in a way that those are aligned to the JD. B, when you talk about your strengths, weaknesses, etc., accomplishments, you can dip into this section and pick something to be answered as part of that question. Same goes for positions of responsibility. These might be integrated with the traditional interview questions. But trust me, when it comes to CV, you will be grilled on your professional experience, projects and certifications, skills and abilities, and you need to get that right. And the way to do that is identify keywords and prepare them well. Write it down, make detailed notes, and prepare for them. Now, few additional stuff. Have a good CV, a professional one, very important, because if you do not have one, even if you are shortlisted for the interview and the interviewer sees your CV, maybe it is not formatted well, it is not professional looking, they would reject you. This will especially happen in consulting because a lot of these skills matter, right? The way consultants think is if you are not able to come up with a good CV, you won't be able to come up with a good output for the clients, more naturally, right? Spend time to think about and prepare a good resume. I've talked about this a bit. It is not a 30-minute job or a 60-minute job. It takes time. Sometimes people take a month to think about it and come up with a good CV on an iterative basis. Key points for public policy or impact-based roles: alignment on skills, have good projects or publications, have relevant internships. Very, very important. Your CV should not be empty. People should have stuff to talk about and discuss from your CV. That includes skills, projects, internships. Your CV should look, for a public policy role, something like this, where you have skills, technical skills, public policy databases, core competencies, quantitative analysis, qualitative analysis, literature review, reporting, presentation, and stuff like that. You should have good projects. For example, this is a project which we work upon as part of our applied public policy course. India's growth story, is it really jobless? The focus on women and youth. So you see, there are certain keywords: literature review, data analysis, quantitative analysis, trend analysis, composite indices, policy briefs. So these are the skills aligned with a public policy role, more often with any public policy, right? And when you have these things mentioned on your CV, you would want people to question you on these, right? Because you are good on those things. You can talk a lot about these things. You can build stories and logical answers around these things. So people really appreciate that, right? So when you are applying for roles in public policy, you should have relevant skills. You should have good projects, and whatever. But relevant keywords aligned with the JD, so that you can talk about them. You can showcase your skills by talking about these things instead of talking in abstract, right? And they also help you, in various ways, both in getting into that, getting a shortlist, having the, providing you the ability to perform well in the interviews, providing you a platform to actually showcase what skills and other, interests which you possess, and then finally breaking into that room. So very important. You can do that independently at your own end. Skill matrix I've already shared. Projects you can yourself pick it up, either in a group or individually, and you can do that. If you need professional guided help, you can come to us. We also offer that as part of our applied public policy lab. JD based questions. Step number 3. One was traditional. Second was resume. Now we come to third, which is JD based questions. Okay. Again, the game here is same as it was for CV based questions, which is you have to identify the keywords, prepare theoretical and practical aspects of those questions well. Keywords you can divide into various things: competencies, skills, necessary versus desired skills. Know all the terminology well. Focus on those qualifications stated in job advertisement that you are currently performing. How's your experience aligned with the role? Okay. So similar exercise like you have to do for identifying keywords on the resume and preparing your answers around that, you have to do for the JD. You have a JD. JD, would say things like what this company is all about, what is the expectation out of these roles, what are the requirements, and various other things. Why do I see annotations on the screen? Vigyasu?
Just there was some issue in switching off the annotation section.
Okay, all right, guys, please avoid this. Like I said, I don't appreciate that. Okay, see, I lose my flow because of this, right? If you're not interested, you're free to leave, right? But let's not disturb others over here. Okay, again, coming back to my point. Keywords, right? So like I was saying, you have to identify the right keywords for CV. Same exercise have to be done for the JD, right? For example, there is a JD. There's not the full JD, just a snippet of it, where there is a section on experience, skills, and professional attributes. And it says, you need an advanced degree in statistics, mathematics, econometrics, applied economics, business economics, whatever. Strong understanding of macroeconomics, demographic, international finance, trade concepts. Strong secondary research skills. Familiarity with global macroeconomic, financial, and statistical databases like IMF, World Bank, OECD, Eurostat, UN, UNCTAD, ILO, BIS. Now, when I go through this JD and I'm appearing for an interview with respect to this particular JD, as part of my preparation, I will browse through these databases in detail. I will make sure that even if I'm not aware of these databases before, or I have not used these databases as part of my academic exercises or my professional experience, I will browse through them in detail and make myself comfortable so that in the interview, even if there is a reference to these particular databases, I have things to talk about or mention. For example, what interviewers appreciate is, you can say that, look, I don't know this, but that won't be appreciated. What will be appreciated is that, look, I do not have detailed knowledge or experience on this, but I have gone through, some of these databases. I have basic understanding and I know what is there and what is not there and things like that. That will tell to the interviewer that A, you are interested in this role. B, because you are interested, you have put in effort, you have done your effort, you have put in hard work to sort of, read across keywords which are relevant for this role. That showcases that you are really interested in this role. That is why you put in that effort and time to learn things which you did not know before, which all interviewers appreciate. Okay, because that's a trait they want to see an individual display when they're actually on the roll, right? Like I said, you have to have the right attitude. This is about attitude, right? If your attitude is whatever I know, whatever I do not know, then that is not what is appreciated. It's okay if you have not worked on these databases, just for example purposes I'm saying, or if you have not known these before, but you browse through them in as much detail as possible before the interview, because then you will have few things to talk about them in a very honest and transparent manner, including saying that, look, you do not have detailed knowledge, etc., but you can talk about this in a bit as part of the conversation, and you are not blank, which is always appreciated. Okay, getting my point? Same exercise for all the keywords. Okay, now people usually ask me that, look, okay, these are the requirements. I don't know many of these, but I do know some of these. Should I apply for these roles or not? The answer is yes, you should apply. Will the interviewer be expecting me to be having detailed knowledge of everything they've written as part of the requirement? The answer is no, a big no. What, from an interviewer perspective, interviewer expects is your ability to learn these things when you are on the job. Your ability to quickly learn these things when you are on the job. This is what interviewers look for. Interviewers are not looking for brilliant champion candidates in the market who know everything. JDs are designed in a way that it's almost next to impossible to identify candidates who know all of these things. It doesn't happen. I've designed a lot of JDs. Okay. Internally, I know what am I necessary, what am I good to have, even if I have not listed down over here on the JD. But in the interview process, what I'm looking for is a confidence in your ability to be able to learn these things when you're on the job. If the interviewer gets that confidence, you are in. So it's a game of confidence. You don't have to have all the skills. No one will have that, right? Even if you have 20% of the skills, but you are able to give confidence to the interviewer that rest 80%, you will learn them, and all of those will come naturally to you. You are in, as compared to someone else who knows 60% of the stuff, but is not able to give confidence that they would learn 40% when they're on the job. So it's a game of confidence. Do not get intimidated by the fact that they have listed down 100 skills. I only know 20. That's okay. But you have to know how to give confidence to the interviewer that rest 80 you will learn in the next 80 days. And trust me, the way JDs are designed, they are like aspirational JDs more often than not. Okay. The skills which are listed down on a JD, 40 to 50% won't even be utilized in your 1.5 years of working in that particular role. So these are aspirational requirements. You have to go according to that, right? So be confident in your abilities in whatever you know. Rest, just learn the keywords and give confidence to the interviewer in the way you answer, that you will be able to fulfill these roles and responsibilities. And that's it. Okay. Now, when it comes to focus on public policy or impact roles, like I said, you need to know all the skills, competencies you need for a JD. The answer is a big no. Guys, I don't know. There is someone over here who is annotating my screen. I really do not appreciate that. And I don't know what to say except that, you don't have any sort of, reason to be here on this webinar, please. It really disturbs my flow. Guys, if you know in this call who is doing that, please, call that person out and we will kick that person out. Okay, next, confidence in ability is more important than the ability itself, like I said. Have some knowledge for all, but be brilliant in some, very important. You should know your area of competence. And in that area of competence, you should not fumble. Okay, that is the game of a good interview. An interviewer is interested to know what your competence circle is. Okay, but an interviewer is also important. From an interviewer perspective, it is important to know that you are thorough with your circle of competence. If you are not, then you won't be able to qualify the interview. So, for example, if I'm interviewing someone, out of 100 skills I've listed down, if I know that this person knows 20 skills, I'm interested in knowing that fact. That is point number one. If you do not know 80, I'm fine with that. But what I'm not fine with is the fact that in those 20 also, you are not good. Then you will not be able to qualify the interview. As simple as that, right? This is especially true for public policy. For roles where skills command more premium than others, for example, data science and etc., the weightage on skills is more, but that's not within public policy. So I'm speaking this from a public policy perspective. Okay, does that make sense? Now, fourth is situation or case-based questions. So we have covered three: traditional questions, very important. Second is resume or CV-based questions, very important. Third is JD-based questions, and fourth is case or situation-based questions. Right? These were the four things we started. Now, this is a big bucket. Case-based questions or situation-based questions or behavioral questions, etc. Here, the type depends on the role which you are applying for. Okay, like I said at the start of my webinar, if it is an impact consulting role, this will take most importance is what I would say. Maybe 60 to 70% weightage. If you are applying for a consulting role, but outside the impact sector, then situation-based questions take more importance. If you are applying for a role in the M&E space or in the implementation space, then both situation-based and behavior-based questions take more importance. Okay, so it depends upon the type of role which you are applying for, and I will talk about each of them in my subsequent slides very quickly. So when it comes to behavior questions, they're based on the premise that you have handled situations in the past, solved a complex problem, dealing with a difficult person, or catching a mistake, such as how you will respond to similar situations in future. Interviewer is looking for problem-solving skills, adaptability and flexibility, time management and organization, and very important communication skills. So they will give you various situations. They will ask you, certain situation-based questions, and they will then, expect a response which will give you confidence in your abilities to do these things. For example, time management at organization, they can ask you that, look, you start your given day. There are 5 things which you have to do. One thing like this, so on and so forth. Tell your 5th thing. How would you, prioritize that, or how would you divide your day so that at the end of the day you are able to complete those 5 things? Or you have to deal with unexpected delays or setbacks. How do you adjust your plans, right? Very important, especially for roles in political consulting. Adaptability and flexibility. When you are working on the field, you might have to deal with all types of individuals. Also individuals like we have on this call who are annotating on the screen. How do you deal with them, right? You have to be adaptable, you have to be flexible. You have to showcase those traits, right? Tomorrow if let's say a Gram Pradhan comes and you are doing something on the ground and they start, maybe creating roadblocks or doing rest of the things, how do you deal with that? If a political situation develops on the ground, how do you deal with that? How do you communicate to people from diverse background, diverse communities with diverse things, right? Now, problem solving skill is something which is appreciated in all roles, more so in public policy. More often than not, in whatever role you are in, not just about consulting. In general, if you're into implementation, M&E, you will face problems, right? Multiple problems. Because like I said, public policy is as much about public as about policy. You are not sitting in silos. You are dealing with public in some shape and form. And when you deal with public, these skills take prominence as compared to any other role where you are just sitting on the computer and doing your stuff. This role is not like that. Even if you are doing research, you are dealing with public. So these skills take prominence, these skills take importance, and employers use various ways and techniques to identify or get confidence that you are up to the mark as far as these skills are concerned. Yes, obviously the weightage would vary depending upon the role which you're going for. Like I said, things are slightly different in an impact consulting role versus a normal social sector consulting role versus maybe an implementation role, an M&E role, or a communication role, or a research role. But more often than not, these skills are super important, super critical. Okay, and you might be provided situations, cases, etc. to test or check your ability to do well on these skills or roles. Now, how do you answer these questions, or how do you deal with these questions? If there are behavioral questions, one of the approach which we usually suggest is a STAR approach. STAR is situation, task, action, result. If you have been asked to talk about a certain example or certain thing which you have experienced in the past, maybe you talk about situation first, then talk about task, then talk about action, and then talk about result. So it's a framework, a mental framework, which allows you to organize your answer in a way so that it sounds more logical, it sounds more coherent, and people are able to understand what you're trying to say, and you are also able to structure your thoughts in your brain before you answer. And trust me, it comes with practice, which I will talk about in my subsequent slides. Just knowing doesn't help. It is about practice. Okay, so it's a STAR approach. We also focus on this approach in our various interactions with people as part of our various programs. Okay, next, very important, case studies or brain teasers or guesstimates based questions. Again, I don't think I can do justice in terms of laying out frameworks and talking in detail about how do you deal with guesstimates. All I can lay out is a framework. Learning how to crack guesstimates is a skill. It comes with knowledge, it comes with experience. And that's the reason we have launched the Case for Change program. If you're interested, you can go to our website and have a look. But for now, like I said, guesstimates are usually used in consulting-based roles more often than not. Small guesstimates can be there in other roles as well, but primarily focused on consulting, be it impact sector or non-impact sector, right? These interviews assess analytical skills, critical thinking, effective communication, problem solving through examination of a real business or governance issue. Look, please remember, whether it is a guesstimate or a case, it is not about having the right answer. It is about having the best answer you can with the information you are given. Approach matters more than the answer. In any of these, case studies or case-based questions or guesstimates. In fact, sometimes there are no right answers, because it is public and it is policy. It's not a mathematical formula where they're looking for a right answer. People behave in various ways, right? They are all looking for a structured thinking approach to tackle that particular situation or problem. Certain things which you should do always is think out loud. If certain things remain inside you, interviewer would not know. How would an interviewer know, right? They are not corresponding with you via telepathy or something like that. So always think out loud. If it is a 15-minute case, take conscious efforts or make conscious efforts to think out loud. You solve the case for 5 minutes and then go back and see how much ground you have covered. Think out loud that, look, okay, we have done this. This is my approach next, and whatever. Gather pertinent information. Most important. Think about a problem which you are solving with a client. Clients usually start with one line or one sentence problem. You yourself, it is your responsibility as a consultant to develop it into a 300-page document, right? How do you do that? You ask questions, you ask for information, you ask for data, you ask for other things, talk to people, talk to a lot of stakeholders, gather all the information. So a small part of that you also have to do while you're sitting on case interviews, right? Ask question, clarify things, and it's a skill to ask the right questions. It is learned with practice. There are certain frameworks. I can talk about those frameworks. Frameworks like, MISI approach, mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. Frameworks like process-based approach. Frameworks like formula-based approach. So there are scientific frameworks which have been designed over the years to tackle these cases. And we talk about these frameworks in our case for change and applied public policy lab programs, and we skill you, we train you on these. Next, very important thing is make logical assumptions. Without assumptions, you won't be able to solve either a guesstimate or a case. Many people can make assumptions, but it is a skill to make logical ones. Logical assumptions carry more weight than any other assumptions. So when you make an assumption, it should carry logic. Develop recommendations or solution. And lastly, treat your interviewer as your client, because that is the approach they are looking for. And practice is the preparation for these type of questions. There is no shortcut. You have to practice, practice, and practice. Then only you will be able to ace a guesstimate or a case study based question. Okay. Now, like a behavioral question, behavioral situation where we are given a star framework, this is another framework where which can help you out in terms of preparing for case studies or brain teasers. This is based on knowing what interviewers are looking for. Okay. Interviewers are looking for intellectual curiosity, which is reflected by asking the right questions. Interviewers are looking for problem-driven thinking, which is reflected when you share your thoughts loud. Discerning mindset, quant basics, and communication. These skills are important because these skills are needed when you're dealing with real clients on the ground. Cool. So we have covered 4. We have covered traditional questions, we have covered CV-based questions, we have covered JD-based questions, and we have covered case studies, guesstimates, or behavioral questions. Now, other than that, so this will cover almost the whole of interview. Other than that, very important thing is be more aware. Be more aware of company organization. Okay. Just give me a moment. So, okay. Yeah. Company or organization based awareness is something which will give you edge in your interview. This also reflects the fact that you're really interested in that role. You have done your homework. Okay. Now, again, you might get a chance to reflect this knowledge and awareness. You might not get a chance to reflect this knowledge and awareness. But in case the discussion ventures into these areas and you are found unprepared, it is never appreciated. If I'm interviewing someone and the person doesn't know about my company, the person doesn't know about the role, the person doesn't know more about the team, I don't think I would hire that person, right? That shows that you are least bothered about the company, the role. You did not do your homework. You are not as much interested as maybe someone else for this particular, right? Now, of course, you won't get everything right? For example, you might not know everything about the role. You might just know maybe 10%. You might not know about the team you will be part of. You would just know maybe 10-15%. You might not know a lot about the company, but you would know enough, which is as per the information which is available in the public domain. More often than not, it would suffice instead of saying you do not know anything. Or what you know is something which you have thought on the feed at that point of time, and that is incorrect. That is not appreciated. Right? So before going for any interview, you should get a company overview, industry knowledge, company challenges, future growth plans, etc., etc. Again, depending upon context and applicability. The general agenda is to be more aware about the organization, about the BU for the role you are interviewing. BU is business unit. About your role, what is role about, what are you expected to do, things like that, and your own profile. How is that related to the JD? Now, any interviewer will give you opportunity at the end of the interview to ask questions, right? For example, I always ask, okay, any other question from your side? Now, if you say no, which is also fine, but usually what is expected is you ask something, right? Just showcase your interest, right? Showcase your interest in the role, in the company, etc. So you have to ask some questions. You have to prepare for that. Okay, and please avoid generic questions directly available on the website. Don't ask about salary. No, that's an HR domain, not the business domain. Don't ask about bond period, number of working hours. No, all of these, I'm not saying these are not important questions. These are not important considerations, but that is not the place. For these considerations, you have HRs. If there is an HR round, focus specifically on this, ask this. Especially in business interviews, when you are interviewed by a business person, please do not ask these questions. It doesn't reflect well, right? If people ask me these questions when I interview people, I just say, reach out to the HR. Even if I know answers, I don't get into these things, right? Because that's not my job. It's not like I do not know answers to these questions. Of course, if I'm hiring for my team, so I know what the working hours are, I know what the bond period is, I know what salary we are offering, but that's not the purpose of the interview, right? So always ask question in a way that it conveys inquisitiveness about you being interested in that role. Never ask things like how did the interview go. People ask me this a lot. I mean, that's not an assessment of the interview is not happening at the end of the interview, right? The most I say is that look, HR will reach out to you, this and that, right? And it's always a relative game, you know. At the end of the interview, it's not an OMR sheet where I put that in the machine and I say yes or no. So people ask this question a lot of the times, how did the interview go? So please don't do these stupid questions. You will know from the HR side, how did the interview go? Okay. And these questions are for the HR, not from the business. Okay. So like I've been, emphasizing all this while, 60 to 70% of the questions in the interview can be predicted based on the above framework. 4 things: traditional, CV, JD, and your behavior, case or guesstimates, right? 60%, 60 to 70% is a conservative estimate, which I've written over here so that you don't hold me to this number. It can go as high as 90% if you are, smart enough to prepare well for the interview. The problem is people do not prepare well for the interviews. What I emphasize every time people come to me in terms of taking help in preparing for interviews is write down answers to most probable questions. If 60 to 70% of the questions can be predicted, it is, stupidity if you do not write them and prepare them well. So I always emphasize upon writing down answers. And trust me, guys, if 100 people reach out to me, only 10 to 15 trust this process and follow this. Very, very few. And I really don't know why. In my career, in the last 10 years, every time I appear for interview, even today, I follow this process. Jigyasu does that. We are all part of public policy and consulting space. This works every time. Doesn't mean you will qualify every interview, but your chances of qualification goes up. And we, as part of our program, provide list of all of these, traditional interview questions, etc., for you to prepare. We review those. We help you out. And the key is, even if you do not need any professional help, keep reviewing, revisiting these answers till you get them right. It's a hard work, it's not simple. Now, some people, I know there is this Nehru Fellowship, which is out, people want to understand, what to prepare for it, how to go about it. We'll be having another session sometime next week to go into details of Nehru Fellowship. But right now, I've just listed down, few things which you should be aware of for Nehru Fellowship, especially from an interview perspective. Things like understanding the core objectives, reflect on motivation and fit. For this particular fellowship, motivation would be personal alignment, fellowship alignment. Be informed on current political events, current affairs, political debates, and showcase relevant skills like analytical skills, communication, adaptability. Like I said, don't worry, we'll have another session on this later on. I would suggest do not fill out the form and submit the form until unless you attend that session. Jigyasu is going to be taking it. He's a veteran in political consulting, and you would be helped, in terms of improving your overall application if you attend that session and submit your application after that. Cool. So I would just take maybe 10 more minutes and then I will wrap it up. So don't worry. The rest of the things are fairly straightforward. Like I said, preparation is 90%. 90% we have already covered. Rest 5% is, rest 10% are other things which I'll be talking about. So before the interview, you have to prepare, and the other part is practice. Okay. Like I was saying, I insist people in terms of writing down answers. Why? Because you need to practice them well. Think about it. A theater artist, if artist has the script, right? Script is like, you preparing for it, right? But if you do not practice, will you be able to perform in front of the audience? The answer is no, right? Similar is the case over here. If you do not practice like a theater artist again and again, you won't be able to ace interviews. If 60 to 70% of the questions can be predicted, you have answers written down. Next logical step is to practice them. For example, 110% of the time in every interview, you'll be asked to introduce yourself. If you have not practiced that well, the opening would not be good, right? And obviously, when you practice, I don't mean to say that you sound robotic. You have to sound natural, like a theater artist. And that comes with practice, right? You practice in front of the mirror, you go for mock interviews. Because 70% of the questions can be predicted, you have to practice them well so that when it is actually the chance to perform in front of the interviewer, you are able to deliver your best. And that is what rests me. Many people do it, not just entry-level professionals, but career experts as well. So that is what we have written over here. You have to practice, practice, and practice. After preparing, next step is practice. Why practice? Build confidence and reduce nervousness, obvious reasons. Identify weaknesses. Questions are anticipated, almost guarantees that the job is yours. If you practice them well, need a good opening, cricket or chess or interview, good opening is half job done. Usually time is limited and topics to cover are huge. Practice allows you to answer in a short and crisp manner. Hence, you allow time to the interviewer also to cover all the level topics, like I was saying before. Now, some of you over here are UPSC aspirants, ex or current. You always worry that, look, okay, how do I showcase my UPSC journey? How do I talk about it? Look, guys, if you are into UPSC, your UPSC journey is very relevant for the public policy or impact consulting roles. And people are now realizing that you might, academically, you might come from an unrelated background, but if you have spent some time preparing for the UPSC examination, you are expected to have good sectoral knowledge. My slide number 1. You are expected to have certain other traits which are needed to excel in a corporate setup. Of course, not all. And instead of being underconfident, you have to wear it on your sleeve that yes, deliberately you chose to spend certain number of years preparing for UPSC. But do not overplay that. Only if the interviewer is interested, you talk about it more. Only if there are questions on that, you talk about more. In general, I would say, yes, be confident, wear it on your sleeve, but do not do an overkill because maybe you have been preparing for UPSC for the last 3, 4, or 5 years, whatever. Because corporate jobs are very different from what you prepare for in UPSC. So only if the interviewer is interested, you talk about it in detail. Otherwise, just mention it, maybe in your introduction or things like that, and that's about it. But do not worry at the back of your head that you will be poked on your career gaps or your UPSC preparation. No, that is not a negative. Gone are the days, where career gaps were taken as something which is negative. These days, sabbaticals for various reasons are very common. I interview a lot of people. I'm not bothered about career gaps. What I'm bothered about is, do you have the right skills and the right attitude to do justice to that particular JD? If you have, you are in, irrespective of career gaps. Now, of course, you need to have answers to certain potential questions which can be asked from you, right? For example, would you be able to work under people who are younger than you? Very important question. People ask this. And they're concerned about this, right? Because at the end of the day, it is about team dynamics. Will you be able to transition? Would you be going for another attempt? If you're looking for a full-time role, even if you're going for another attempt, your answer should be no, I'm not going for another attempt. Okay, it's not a truth game going over there where you have to say that, look, I'll be preparing for UPSC along with working full-time with you. You won't be hired. As simple as that. You have to say UPSC is done. The door is closed. In as confident a manner as possible. And have answers to questions like, will you be able to work in a team where your reporting will be maybe to someone who is younger to you? The answer is, it's very common in a corporate setup. It's not an academic journey where things happen as per a particular timeline. In corporates, it is very common, not just an outcome of UPSC. It can happen otherwise as well. You grow depending upon your skills and various things which are needed to grow in a corporate ladder. Your age is not a reflection of your growth, as simple as that. Okay? So be aware of these things, be confident about it, and that will help you ace interviews and ace these gray areas. Now, if you are really looking for a particular story around how should you justify your UPSC journey, it will be different for different people. So I won't be able to come up with a consistent one here. All I'm saying is be confident. It's okay. You have gathered a lot of knowledge and skills as part of UPSC journey. Talk to any person who has spent years preparing for UPSC and then managed to develop a successful corporate career, including myself and Jigyasu. We always have good things to talk about our UPSC journey and how it helped in our career. Okay? So don't worry. Just have right and logical answers in line with the JD. Do not say आपको दूसरे attempt के लिए भी जाना है. People won't hire you. Okay. Very simple things. Won't spend much time. Dress formally. Look into the webcam. Proper distance. Test technology. Uncluttered background. Never be late. During the interview, simple things. Clear articulation. Avoid talking negatively. Listen carefully. Take your time. Can ask to repeat a question. And do ask how to get back in touch and stuff. During the interview, sell yourself. Do not downplay or underplay your skills and abilities. Like I said, it's a question of confidence. If you do not have confidence on your skills, interviewer would not have confidence on hiring you and your ability to justify the JD. Do not make any assumptions. Do not beat around the bush. Trust me, if you do not know, you have to say that. I interview a lot of people. If they beat around the bush, they are out. Person who is interviewing you is way more experienced, way more skills as compared to you. So do not do that. Like I said, saying you do not know is better than beating around the bush. Avoid long answers. It is limited time for you as well as for the interview. Honesty is always appreciated. Never try to fool the interviewer. These days, interviews happen virtually. I've seen people Googling while they ask questions. I don't appreciate that. You think that you are super smart, but you are not. Okay, so after the interview, it's a fairly straightforward process. You can choose to send a tailored thank you note, follow up in case there is no response. Please do not use LinkedIn to reach out to the interviewer immediately after the interview. People do that, trust me, and that is not taken in the right, way. It's a process. Let the process to complete. You can reach out to the interviewer maybe after a month or 2 months, sort of a thing, to take feedback, which is fine, but not after the interview. Okay. Please note there is a thin line between being proactive and being a pest. You have to be proactive and not a pest. Sorry if this word sounds offensive to you, but this is how it is. Okay. So do not cross that. It can seriously undermine your chances of getting it off. Cool. So guys, here is where I would stop. Like I promised, I'm going to be opening the session or the floor for Q&A. But before I do that, I just want to cover 2 more slides where I will talk about our rebounds and how do we help people who want to ace interviews or in general get into public policy or consulting space. So we have a very new and improved applied public policy lab program. Cohort 3 is what we'll be starting from March 1. It's a 6-month long program where month 1 we will focus upon case, helping you get upskilled and ace case interviews. and ACE guesstimates to improve your overall problem solving skills. Month 2 and 3 is specifically focused on learning all market relevant skills for public policy, which would help you strengthen your CV and also write a white paper, the glimpse I've already provided, so that it helps you strengthen your CV, helps in shortlisting, and also give you a lot of muscle or content to talk about during interviews. Then this is a 3-month learning program. Learning ends here. Then we help you in tools needed to get into the market, which is resume, cover letter, LinkedIn profile, very optimized LinkedIn profile. These day and age, very important. Good cover letter, CV. I've been talking about mock interviews and other sort of things which I've talked about. Everything is out. The formula is out. There is no secret to it. We just help you ace that. So the secret is already out in the open for everything. We just provide you professional help and support based on our sort of, experience and knowledge. We help you ace take-home assignments. In virtually every public policy role, you'll be asked to analyze something, write something, do something about it. Of course, we won't do that on your behalf, but we help you review that. And if there are any obvious gaps, you can overcome that based on our feedback. Then there is unlimited support, guidance, and mentorship for 6 months continuous. And every day we are expanding our corporate referrals program. Whenever those corporate referrals are available, we reach out to you for that and you can access that. So it's a 8-step process to get into public policy or impact consulting. We are fairly confident for a period of 6 months, you would be able to have a good CV, good LinkedIn profile, have good skills important for public policy, ACE, case interviews and guesstimates, and have rest of the other things which are needed to get into the market. So if you're interested in professional help, you can find more details at reboundscarriers.com. The details would also be there in the chat box. Again, the formula is already out there. There is no secret to it. We do not hold any patent to the formula. All we are providing is professional support and guidance. If you are confident you can manage it on your own, we are happy with that. That's completely fine. It's your choice. But we are here for all professional help, support, and guidance in case you need it. Yeah. So like I was saying earlier, our program did not cover some of these things, which is about acing the impact cases, building design thinking skills. Very important. Yeah, this is the point which I did not mention before, but we'll be covering this design thinking aspect as well as part of our course. Guesstimates and expanded referral program. This is what everyone gets, which is about exclusive access to our content, complimentary membership, curated job postings. We were the first to post about Nehru Fellowship. We are the first to post about many other fellowships which come in the market. Usually people are not aware about those and they just, end up not applying for those. But trust us, if you are associated with us on our social media platforms, more often than not, any public policy or impact consulting role, if it comes in the market, we'll be here to help and support. And if there is good enough interest, we would also organize free webinars and masterclasses to help you, ace the application process. On our program, a 20% discount is currently ongoing. And we are very, very happy to provide extra 5% discount to people already on this webinar, just to encourage you, enroll for it. And it will be available till Monday, 3rd February, 2025, 12 p.m., 12 midnight. So 20% is already ongoing, which is going to be ending this Thursday. But if you want to avail this extra 5%, you have to enroll by tomorrow midnight. The link to that special form, which you need to fill out to enroll for this, is already there in the chat. We'll also be sharing that on the WhatsApp group. So don't worry, you won't get this special discount if you go onto the website. Only if you fill out this form, you will get that special discount. And this last slide before I open this floor for Q&A. We have 2 more programs. Market readiness, I've already talked about a lot. Won't talk about it more now. You can visit our website, reboundscarriers.com, and you would know more about this program. Another is case for change. Case for change is nothing but a small section of the big applied public policy lab program where we focus only on this aspect, which is acing cases, acing estimates, and maybe some bit of design thinking skills. And we are also providing an extra 5% discount on this program as well, case for change, because this webinar is about public policy and impact consulting. So we want to encourage people and take benefit from this program, which will also be launched on 1st of March. So if you're interested, feel free to enroll for this program. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being with us all this while. I open the floor for discussion.